Introduction. This audiobook is for every person who kept giving love, loyalty, time, and forgiveness to people who never truly chose them. Before this journey begins, ask yourself one honest question. How much of your life have you already wasted trying to be enough for people who only remember you when they need you? The life you owe yourself is not about becoming cold. It is about becoming free. It is about ending the habit of begging for a place in someone else's heart and finally returning to your own. If you have ever felt ignored, replaced, used, forgotten, or tired from loving people who never loved you with the same energy, then stay until the end, because your real life will not begin when someone finally chooses you. It begins when you finally choose yourself. Subscribe to the Book Frog and write in the comments, "I choose myself now." Chapter 1. Stop giving your best to people who treat you like an option. There is a quiet kind of pain that does not always look dramatic from the outside, but inside it slowly drains the strongest parts of a person. And that pain begins when you keep giving your best to people who only give you their leftover attention, their half-hearted effort, their convenient care, and their temporary presence whenever life becomes lonely for them. At first, you may not notice what is happening because your heart is still hopeful, and hope can make even the smallest act of attention feel bigger than it really is. So when they reply after ignoring you, when they smile after hurting you, when they return after disappearing, when they give you a little warmth after making you feel cold for days, your heart starts believing that maybe they are changing, maybe they finally understand, maybe this time they will choose you properly. But the painful truth is that some people are not choosing you, they are only using the comfort of knowing you are still available, and they do not always keep you close because they love you deeply. Sometimes they keep you close because your loyalty makes their life easier, your forgiveness removes their guilt, your kindness gives them peace, and your presence becomes a place they can return to whenever the world outside stops clapping for them. This is where the life you owe yourself begins. Not when they finally apologize perfectly, not when they finally realize your worth, not when they finally explain why they treated you like you were easy to lose, but when you finally become honest enough to admit that you have been giving too much of your soul to people who were only giving you enough to keep you waiting. You must understand that being an option does not always look like rejection. Sometimes it looks like mixed signals. Sometimes it looks like sweet words without steady actions. Sometimes it looks like someone who wants your emotional support, but not your emotional needs. Sometimes it looks like a person who enjoys your presence, but disappears when responsibility enters the relationship. And because you are a good-hearted person, you may keep making excuses for them, telling yourself they are busy, they are stressed, they are hurt, they have a difficult past, they do not express themselves well, they need time, they need patience, they need understanding. But while you keep understanding them, who is understanding the part of you that is quietly breaking? There is a point where patience becomes self-betrayal, and there is a point where loyalty becomes a prison, and there is a point where love stops being love and becomes a slow habit of abandoning yourself just to keep someone else comfortable. The life you owe yourself requires you to stop confusing your ability to endure pain with proof that you should stay, because just because you can survive being ignored does not mean you deserve to be ignored. Just because you can handle being disappointed does not mean disappointment should become your normal. And just because you can love people through their worst does not mean you should keep giving your best to people who never try to meet you with the same sincerity. Your heart was not created to be a waiting room where people come and go whenever they feel empty. And your life was not given to you so you could spend years standing at the doorway of someone else's attention, hoping one day they will open fully and finally invite you into the place you have been begging to enter. You owe yourself more than late replies that make you anxious, more than empty promises that keep you attached, more than apologies that change nothing, more than relationships where you feel lonely even while someone is still in your life, and more than connections where you are always afraid that asking for basic respect will make them leave. The hardest part is accepting that some people already know what they are doing. They know when they ignore you. They know when they hurt you. They know when they only appear when they need something. They know when your heart is tired, but because you keep staying, they begin to believe that your pain has no consequence and your forgiveness has no limit. This is why choosing yourself will feel uncomfortable at first, because you are not only walking away from a person, you are walking away from the version of yourself that believed suffering was the price of being loved, and you are breaking an old pattern that taught you to prove your worth by how much you could tolerate. But listen carefully. The people who truly value you will not require you to destroy your peace just to keep their presence. And the people who truly care for you will not make you feel guilty for needing consistency, honesty, respect, and emotional safety. When you stop giving your best to people who treat you like an option, you do not become heartless, you become awake. And awakening is painful because it forces you to see what your hope kept hiding. But it is also beautiful because it returns your power back to the only place it always belonged, inside your own hands. You begin to notice who only appears when they need you, who only listens when the topic is about them, who only respects your silence but never respects your pain, who calls you sensitive when you finally speak honestly, who misses your presence but never protected your heart when they had access to it. And slowly you stop chasing explanations from people whose actions have already spoken clearly. You stop forcing conversations with people who benefit from misunderstanding you. You stop giving unlimited chances to people who use every chance to repeat the same wound, and you stop turning your own heart into a sacrifice just to keep a bond that keeps making you feel smaller. This chapter is not asking you to hate anyone, because hate is still a chain, and you are not here to become chained to people through anger after being chained to them through love. This chapter is asking you to become free enough to see people as they are, not as you hoped they would become. Some people will not choose you because they do not know how to love properly. Some will not choose you because they are selfish. Some will not choose you because they enjoy the benefits of your love without wanting the responsibility of honoring it, and some will not choose you simply because they were never meant to walk with the version of you that is finally learning self-respect. Whatever the reason is, your healing begins when you stop turning their inability to choose you into evidence that you are not enough, because their lack of effort does not reduce your value, their silence does not cancel your worth. Their emotional laziness does not define your beauty, and their failure to love you properly does not mean you were difficult to love. You were not too much for asking to be valued. You were not too sensitive for noticing the difference between words and actions. You were not needy for wanting consistency, and you were not wrong for expecting people who claim to care about you to show that care with something stronger than occasional attention. The life you owe yourself begins with one brave decision. Stop handing your best energy to people who only give you enough to keep you from leaving, and start giving that energy to the person who has been waiting inside you for years, the person who needs your patience, your love, your attention, your forgiveness, your belief, and your protection. That person is you. And when you finally choose yourself, not as a reaction to being rejected, but as a commitment to your own peace, you will begin to feel something powerful rise within you. Something quiet but unshakable, something that no longer begs to be seen, no longer performs to be loved, no longer breaks itself to be accepted, and no longer waits outside closed doors, hoping someone will one day decide you are worthy of entering. You will understand that being alone with dignity is better than being chosen without respect, that silence with peace is better than conversation filled with confusion, that distance from the wrong people is not loss but protection, and that the life you owe yourself cannot begin while you are still spending all your strength trying to make someone else choose you. So from this moment, begin with your energy, begin with your time, begin with your attention, begin with your heart, and ask yourself before giving it away, does this person honor what I give, or do they only consume it? Because the answer to that question will show you where your freedom begins. Chapter 2. Why you keep choosing people who never truly choose you. Sometimes the deepest wound is not only that someone failed to choose you, but that you kept choosing them again and again after they showed you through silence, inconsistency, distance, excuses, and repeated disappointment that your heart was not being held with the same care you kept offering theirs. and this truth can be difficult to face because it asks you to stop looking only at what they did and begin looking gently, honestly, and courageously at why you stayed so long in a place where your soul was slowly becoming tired. There are moments in life when you must ask yourself a question that may hurt before it heals you. Why did I keep giving my loyalty to people who only gave me confusion? Why did I keep explaining my pain to people who kept pretending not to understand? Why did I keep waiting for someone to become gentle after they had already become comfortable with hurting me? And why did I keep calling it love when most of what I felt was anxiety, fear, hope, and emotional hunger? This question is not meant to blame you, because you were not foolish for loving deeply. You were not weak for believing in someone. You were not stupid for giving chances. And you were not wrong for seeing potential in people. But healing begins when you realize that potential is not the same as presence. Promises are not the same as proof. And the version of someone you keep hoping for is not the same as the person who keeps standing in front of you with the same old patterns. Many people keep choosing those who do not choose them because somewhere inside, they are still trying to earn the love they once needed but did not fully receive. And when a person grows used to emotional distance, uncertain affection, conditional approval, or love that must be earned through sacrifice, they may enter adulthood believing that love is something they must chase, prove, beg for, wait for, or suffer for, before they are finally worthy of receiving it. This is how the heart becomes attached to people who feel familiar, even when they are not healthy, because familiarity can disguise itself as connection. And sometimes the people who trigger your deepest wounds can feel powerful in your life, not because they are right for you, but because they awaken an old part of you that still wants to be chosen, still wants to be seen, still wants someone emotionally unavailable to finally turn around and say, "You were enough all along." But you must understand something with complete honesty. You cannot heal an old wound by returning to the same kind of person who created it. And you cannot receive real love from people who only know how to give you moments, fragments, mixed signals, and small drops of affection just when you are strong enough to walk away. This is why some relationships feel addictive, because they do not give you peace, they give you a cycle, and the cycle becomes powerful because one day they are warm, the next day they are cold, one day they make you feel special, the next day they make you feel invisible, one day they pull you close, the next day they act like your emotions are too much, and your mind becomes trapped trying to solve a person instead of simply seeing the truth of their behavior. You start waiting for the good version of them to return, and because you have seen small glimpses of kindness, tenderness, attention, or affection, you keep believing that the person you love is hidden somewhere underneath their inconsistency. But sometimes those small good moments are not proof of deep love. Sometimes they are only enough comfort to keep you attached to a pattern that keeps taking more from you than it gives back. And this is where you must learn the difference between love and emotional addiction, because love gives you a sense of safety, but addiction gives you a fear of losing the person. Love helps you become more yourself, but addiction makes you abandon yourself. Love brings clarity, but addiction creates obsession. Love does not require you to keep guessing where you stand, but addiction keeps you searching for signs that maybe this time you are finally important. When you keep choosing people who do not choose you, it is often because your heart has confused intensity with intimacy, and this confusion is dangerous because the strongest emotional pull is not always the healthiest connection. The person who makes your nervous system shake is not always your soulmate. The person who makes you wait is not always worth waiting for. And the person who keeps you emotionally hungry is not special just because you crave their attention. Real love does not feel like standing outside a locked door hoping someone inside will remember your name. Real love does not make you study someone's mood like a test you are afraid to fail. Real love does not make you feel that your value rises and falls depending on whether they reply, call, notice, compliment, return, apologize, or temporarily act like they care. If you are always trying to decode someone's behavior, if you are always asking why they changed, why they disappeared, why they came back, why they were sweet yesterday and distant today, why they make promises but do not follow through, then maybe what you are holding is not love but uncertainty wearing the mask of connection. And uncertainty can become very powerful when you do not know your own worth, because the less you value yourself, the more you may accept emotional crumbs as proof of love, and the more you fear being alone, the more you may stay attached to people who keep giving you just enough attention to prevent you from leaving, but never enough love to make you feel secure. This is why the life you owe yourself requires you to become deeply honest about the part of you that keeps choosing pain because peace feels unfamiliar. Because when you have lived in emotional chaos for too long, calmness may feel boring, healthy love may feel strange, consistent people may feel less exciting, and someone who respects you may not trigger the same nervous excitement as someone who makes you fight for their attention. But peace is not boring, peace is safe, and safety may feel unfamiliar to a heart that has spent years surviving, proving, chasing, overthinking, and preparing itself to be disappointed again. You may have called it love when it was really fear. You may have called it loyalty when it was really attachment. You may have called it patience when it was really self-abandonment. You may have called it understanding when it was really silence forced by the fear of losing someone, and you may have called it hope when it was really the refusal to accept what their actions had already revealed. This does not make you bad, it makes you human. And being human means sometimes we do not chase people because they are good for us. We chase them because losing them would force us to feel the emptiness we were using them to escape. That is another reason you may keep choosing people who do not choose you, because their presence, even when painful, distracts you from the deeper work of meeting yourself. And as long as you are focused on why they are distant, why they are confusing, why they are not choosing you, you do not have to sit quietly with the question of why you are not choosing yourself. The mind can become obsessed with someone else's inconsistency because obsession is easier than grief. And grief is what comes when you finally admit that the person you wanted so badly may never become the person your heart kept waiting for. Grief is painful because it asks you to bury the fantasy, not only the connection, and sometimes what breaks your heart most is not losing the person as they truly were, but losing the dream of who you believed they could become if they loved you correctly, if they healed, if they understood, if they changed, if they finally saw your worth before you had nothing left to give. But listen carefully. You cannot build the life you owe yourself on an if. If they change, if they come back, if they apologize, if they choose me, if they stop hurting me, if they become consistent, if they finally understand, if they realize I was different. These thoughts may keep you alive emotionally for a while, but they also keep you trapped in a future that depends on someone else becoming ready to value what they have already had access to. The life you owe yourself begins when you stop making your healing depend on someone else's transformation, because some people may never become who you needed them to be, and waiting for them to change can quietly become the place where your own life disappears. You owe yourself the courage to admit that love without respect is not enough. Chemistry without consistency is not enough. History without healing is not enough. Apologies without changed behavior are not enough. And someone's potential without their effort is not enough. You may keep choosing people who do not choose you because you are afraid that walking away means you failed. But sometimes walking away means you finally passed the lesson, because the lesson was never to convince them to love you. The lesson was to stop abandoning yourself every time someone made you feel unworthy. The lesson was to learn that not every person who enters your life deserves permanent access to your soul. Not every emotional connection is a life assignment. Not every person you love is meant to stay, and not every ending is proof that you are not enough. Sometimes endings are proof that you are finally strong enough to stop accepting what keeps wounding you. There is a version of you that keeps choosing people who do not choose you because that version is still waiting to be rescued by love. But there is another version of you, a wiser version, a quieter version, a stronger version, that understands love should not rescue you from yourself. Love should meet you when you are already learning to stand. And when you begin choosing yourself, you will start noticing how much energy you used to spend trying to become easier for the wrong people to love. You softened your truth so they would not feel guilty. You lowered your expectations so they would not feel pressured. You accepted less so they would not leave. You hid your needs so they would not call you demanding. And you carried pain silently so the relationship could continue looking peaceful from the outside. But a relationship that requires you to silence your soul is not peace, it is emotional captivity. The life you owe yourself will ask you to become brave enough to disappoint the version of you that still wants to be chosen by everyone, because not everyone's approval is worth having, not everyone's love is safe, not everyone's presence is a blessing, and not everyone who wants access to you has the maturity to honor what they receive. You must learn to ask better questions, not how do I make them choose me, but why am I trying to be chosen by someone who keeps making me feel invisible? Not how do I get them to understand my pain, but why do I keep handing my pain to someone who has shown me they are careless with it? Not what can I do to make them stay, but what part of me believes I cannot survive if they leave? Those questions may shake you, but they will also wake you. Because the truth is, you can survive without the people you once thought you could not live without. You can rebuild after the connection you thought would define your future. You can stop checking, stop waiting, stop hoping, stop explaining, stop returning, and one day you can look back and realize that the absence you feared became the space where your real self finally returned. The people who never truly choose you often leave you with a gift they never intended to give. They force you to meet the parts of yourself you ignored, the wounds you covered, the standards you abandoned, the dreams you delayed, and the dignity you kept trading for temporary closeness. And when you finally face those parts of yourself, your life begins to shift, because you stop asking people to fill emptiness they did not create responsibly, and you start becoming responsible for your own healing, your own peace, your own direction, your own confidence, your own identity, and your own future. This does not mean you stop loving people. It means you stop using love as a reason to betray yourself. And there is a powerful difference between having a soft heart and having no boundaries, between being patient and being available for disrespect, between understanding someone's pain and allowing their pain to become a weapon against your peace. You can love someone and still leave them alone. You can forgive someone and still stop giving them access. You can wish someone well and still refuse to carry their chaos. You can understand why someone is broken and still choose not to be broken by them. That is maturity, and that is the beginning of freedom. The life you owe yourself is waiting on the other side of this pattern, the pattern of choosing people who make you feel like you must earn what should be freely given, the pattern of loving people who only love you when it is convenient, the pattern of ignoring your own needs so someone else can remain comfortable, the pattern of mistaking emotional struggle for deep connection. Break the pattern gently, but break it completely. Do not shame yourself for the years you spent choosing the wrong people, because shame will only keep you stuck. But do not continue the pattern just because you are afraid to admit how much it has cost you. Look at your life with honesty and compassion and say to yourself, I understand why I stayed, but I also understand why I must not stay there anymore. This sentence can become the doorway to your new life, because once you understand why you kept choosing them, you are no longer controlled by the pattern in the same way. And once you see the wound clearly, you can finally stop letting that wound choose your relationships, your friendships, your priorities, your sacrifices, your silence, and your future. You do not need to be chosen by someone who only knows how to love you halfway. You do not need to fight for a place in a heart that keeps treating you like a visitor. You do not need to remain loyal to people who benefit from your fear of leaving. You do not need to keep proving that you are worth effort, because real effort does not need to be begged from people who genuinely value you. So choose differently now. Choose peace even when it feels unfamiliar. Choose consistency even when chaos feels exciting. Choose self-respect even when attachment tells you to go back. Choose your own healing even when your heart still misses the people who hurt you. Choose the future version of yourself who will one day thank you for finally stopping the cycle. And most of all, choose yourself not because they failed to choose you, but because you finally understand that your life is too precious to keep placing it in the hands of people who never learned how to hold it with care. Chapter 3. The day you stop begging for a place in someone's life. There comes a day when something inside you becomes too tired to keep explaining the same pain to people who already know exactly what they are doing. And this day does not always arrive with anger, shouting, revenge, or dramatic decisions. Sometimes it arrives quietly, in the middle of an ordinary morning, when you look at your phone and realize you no longer want to wait for a message that used to control your whole mood, or when you sit alone at night and suddenly understand that you have been giving your life to people who only gave you uncertainty in return. This is the day you stop begging, not because your heart has stopped feeling, not because the memories have disappeared, not because you no longer care at all, but because you finally begin to care about yourself more than you care about being accepted by someone who made you feel unwanted for too long. Begging is not always kneeling in front of someone with tears in your eyes. Sometimes begging looks like sending one more message after being ignored. Sometimes begging looks like pretending you are not hurt because you are afraid the truth will push them further away. Sometimes begging looks like accepting half effort because you are scared that asking for full respect will make them leave. Sometimes begging looks like explaining your heart to someone who keeps acting confused only because confusion helps them avoid responsibility. And sometimes begging looks like staying in places where your spirit feels small, staying in conversations where your feelings are treated like a burden, staying connected to people who remember you only when their loneliness becomes louder than their pride, staying loyal to bonds that have already taught you again and again that your loyalty is not being honored, only consumed. The life you owe yourself begins when you finally see the difference between being loving and being desperate to be loved. Because loving someone from a full heart is beautiful, but losing yourself in the hope that someone will finally choose you is not love anymore. It becomes a slow surrender of your dignity, your peace, your identity, your confidence, and the quiet self-respect that once told you, "I deserve better than this." Maybe you have spent too much time trying to convince someone that you are worth effort, worth honesty, worth consistency, worth a real place, worth being treated gently, worth being protected instead of used, worth being chosen without having to beg for basic care. And maybe every time they gave you a small piece of attention, you mistook it for proof that your waiting was not wasted. But ask yourself honestly, how many small pieces of attention have you mistaken for love? And how many empty apologies have you accepted because you wanted the relationship to survive more than you wanted your heart to heal? This question may hurt, but it is the kind of pain that cuts the rope around your soul. Because the truth is, people who truly want to keep you do not keep making you wonder where you stand. They do not keep placing you in emotional uncertainty and then blame you for feeling insecure. They do not keep disappearing and returning as if your heart is a door they can open whenever they feel lonely. They do not keep treating your forgiveness like a guarantee and your patience like a place where consequences never arrive. When someone truly values you, you do not have to become smaller to remain in their life. You do not have to silence your needs, hide your sadness, soften your truth, lower your standards, or pretend that their inconsistency does not affect you. Real love does not require you to act unhurt in order to be tolerated. Real love does not demand that you betray yourself just to preserve a connection that keeps breaking you. The day you stop begging is the day you understand that your peace is more important than their presence. And this understanding changes everything because, for the first time, you stop asking, "How can I make them stay?" and you begin asking, "What is it costing me to keep them?" And when you ask that question with full honesty, you may realize that some people have cost you more than they ever gave you. They cost you sleep. They cost you confidence. They cost you clarity. They cost you the ability to trust your own feelings. They cost you the version of yourself who used to laugh without overthinking, love without fear, and wake up without checking whether someone had finally decided to care. This is a heavy realization, but it is also a holy kind of freedom, because when you finally calculate the emotional cost of staying in places where you are not valued, you stop romanticizing pain and start recognizing it for what it is. You begin to see that missing someone does not always mean they belong in your life. You begin to see that loving someone does not mean you should keep giving them access to the parts of you they keep damaging. You begin to see that history is not a reason to keep suffering, memories are not a reason to keep waiting, and hope is not a reason to keep bleeding in silence. There is a version of you that still wants one last conversation, one last explanation, one last apology, one last sign that they understood what they did, one last moment where they finally look at you and say everything your wounded heart has been waiting to hear. But there is another version of you, a stronger and wiser version, that knows some closure does not come from their mouth. It comes from your decision to stop reopening the door. You may never receive the apology that explains the damage. You may never hear the words that repair the confusion. You may never see them take full responsibility for the way they made you feel. You may never get the ending your heart thinks it needs, but you can still be free. Freedom begins when you stop waiting for people who hurt you to become the source of your healing. This is one of the most important lessons in the life you owe yourself. The person who broke your peace cannot always be trusted to restore it. And if you keep waiting for them to heal the wound they keep reopening, you may spend years standing in the same emotional place, hoping someone else will become mature enough to rescue you from the pain they helped create. But healing asks something different from you. Healing asks you to stop giving someone the power to decide when you are allowed to move on. Healing asks you to stop needing their permission to become whole. Healing asks you to stop making your recovery depend on their regret. And this is where many people struggle, because begging for a place in someone's life can become a habit, and habits do not disappear just because the truth becomes clear. You may still want to text them, you may still want to check on them, you may still wonder if they miss you, you may still replay the beautiful moments and question whether you are making a mistake by choosing distance. This does not mean you are weak. It means your heart is detoxing from a connection that became too powerful in your nervous system. When you stop begging, your body may panic before your soul feels peaceful. You may feel empty before you feel free. You may feel lonely before you feel strong. You may feel tempted to return simply because returning is familiar, and sometimes familiar pain feels safer than unfamiliar peace. But do not confuse withdrawal with love. Do not confuse missing them with needing them. Do not confuse the ache of change with proof that you should go back. Sometimes your heart hurts not because the person was right for you, but because you are finally separating yourself from a pattern that trained you to survive on emotional crumbs. And emotional crumbs can become addictive when you have been starving for love. A little attention can feel like a feast when you have been ignored for too long. A small compliment can feel like devotion when you have been doubting your worth. A late apology can feel like transformation when you have been waiting for accountability. A temporary return can feel like destiny when you have been abandoned emotionally again and again. But you must wake up from this hunger. You cannot keep building your life around the smallest signs of care from people who never gave you consistent love. You cannot keep praising someone for doing the bare minimum after they trained you to expect nothing. You cannot keep calling a person special simply because they occasionally treat you well between long seasons of making you feel invisible. The life you owe yourself requires you to raise your standard from they came back to they show up correctly, from they said sorry to they changed their behavior, from they miss me to they respect me, from they need me to they value me, from they do not want to lose me to they know how to love me while they have me. Because some people do not want to lose you, but they also do not want to treat you properly. They want your presence without responsibility, your loyalty without commitment, your forgiveness without accountability, your warmth without giving safety, and your love without having to become the kind of person who deserves it. And this is why you must stop begging, not because you are angry, but because you finally understand that staying available to people who refuse to grow is one of the quietest ways to lose your own life. The day you stop begging, you may have to grieve not only the person, but the version of yourself who accepted too little. You may have to grieve the years you spent hoping. You may have to grieve the dreams you built around someone who never built anything real around you. You may have to grieve the conversations you imagined, the future you pictured, the loyalty you gave, the sacrifices you made, and the part of your heart that kept believing love would eventually become equal if you just waited long enough. Let yourself grieve. Do not rush this part. Do not shame yourself for feeling sad. Do not pretend you are healed before you are. Do not turn your pain into pride too quickly. A heart that loved deeply needs time to release what it once held with both hands. But while you grieve, do not go back to the place that made you sick, just because loneliness makes the wound feel louder. Loneliness is not always a sign that you made the wrong decision. Sometimes loneliness is simply the space that appears after you remove what was hurting you, and that space may feel empty at first because your life had become organized around someone else's inconsistency. You had routines around waiting. You had habits around checking. You had thoughts around wondering. You had emotional reactions built around whether they appeared, disappeared, replied, apologized, ignored, remembered, or returned. So when you stop begging and step away, your life may feel strangely quiet, but quiet is not always emptiness. Sometimes quiet is what your soul sounds like when chaos finally leaves. You must learn to sit inside that quiet without running back to noise. This is where you begin rebuilding. You rebuild your mornings by not starting them with someone else's absence. You rebuild your nights by not ending them with questions no one answers. You rebuild your confidence by keeping promises to yourself. You rebuild your dignity by not opening doors that cost you peace. You rebuild your identity by remembering who you were before you became someone who waited to be chosen. And slowly, something beautiful happens. You stop begging not only with your words, but with your energy. Your attention becomes more disciplined. Your silence becomes more honest. Your boundaries become calmer. Your standards become clearer. Your heart becomes softer toward yourself and stronger toward what no longer deserves access. You begin to understand that not responding is sometimes a response. Not explaining is sometimes wisdom. Not returning is sometimes healing. Not chasing is sometimes the greatest proof that you finally learned the lesson. And yes, some people may notice the change. They may notice that you no longer reply with the same speed. They may notice that your warmth has become selective. They may notice that you no longer explain your sadness in long paragraphs. They may notice that your forgiveness now has boundaries. They may notice that you still care, but you no longer care enough to abandon yourself. Some may call you cold because they were used to your overgiving. Some may call you changed because they benefited from the version of you that had no limits. Some may act confused because your new strength interrupts the old system where they could hurt you and still find you waiting. Let them call it whatever they want. You are not responsible for making your healing comfortable for people who benefited from your wounds. The life you owe yourself is not built by winning everyone's approval. It is built by choosing truth, even when people misunderstand it. It is built by choosing distance, even when attachment begs for closeness. It is built by choosing self-respect, even when guilt whispers that you are being selfish. It is built by choosing peace, even when chaos feels familiar. You must remember that the people who truly belong in your life will not require you to beg for a place in theirs. They will not make you feel like your presence is a burden. They will not punish you for needing clarity. They will not disappear every time honesty enters the room. They will not make you feel guilty for wanting the same love you give. The right people may not be perfect, but they will not make you feel emotionally homeless. And perhaps that is what you have been for too long. Emotionally homeless inside relationships where you gave shelter but never received safety, where you offered warmth but slept in cold uncertainty, where you made room for people who never made room for your pain. Now it is time to come home to yourself. Come home to the person you neglected while trying to be loved. Come home to the dreams you postponed because your heart was too busy surviving. Come home to the peace you kept sacrificing for temporary attention. Come home to the dignity that was always waiting beneath your fear. The day you stop begging is not the day you stop loving. It is the day you stop confusing love with self-abandonment. It is the day you stop saying yes when your soul is saying no. It is the day you stop accepting emotional confusion as the price of connection. It is the day you stop believing that someone's inability to choose you says something negative about your worth. It does not. Their inability to choose you may speak about their immaturity, their selfishness, their wounds, their fear, their inconsistency, or their lack of emotional responsibility, but it does not speak the final truth about you. You are still worthy. You are still valuable. You are still lovable. You are still capable of a life that feels peaceful, full, meaningful, and deeply yours. But you cannot reach that life while your hands are still holding on to people who keep pulling you back into the smallest version of yourself. So release the need to be chosen by those who made you question your worth. Release the fantasy that one day they will become everything you needed. Release the habit of explaining your value to people who were never blind, only unwilling. Release the old story that says being alone means being unwanted. Being alone may be the beginning of becoming whole, because when you stop begging for a place in someone else's life, you create space for your own life to finally expand. You start noticing your own needs again. You start hearing your own thoughts again. You start feeling your own strength again. You start remembering that your purpose is bigger than being accepted by people who were too careless to honor you. And one day, you will look back at the person you used to be, the person who waited, chased, explained, forgave, returned, cried, and kept hoping, and you will not hate that version of yourself. You will feel compassion for them. You will understand that they were doing the best they could with the wounds they had. You will understand that they stayed because they wanted love, not because they lacked worth. You will understand that they kept choosing others because they had not yet learned how to choose themselves. Then you will gently say goodbye to that version, not with shame, but with gratitude, because that version survived long enough for this stronger version to arrive. And this stronger version no longer begs. This stronger version knows that love without peace is too expensive. This stronger version knows that attention without respect is not enough. This stronger version knows that presence without emotional safety can still feel like loneliness. This stronger version knows that being wanted by the wrong people is not worth losing yourself. This stronger version understands that the life you owe yourself cannot be built in the shadow of people who only choose you when they are empty. So today, make the decision quietly. You do not need to announce it. You do not need to prove it. You do not need to post it. You do not need to send one final message explaining why your heart is tired. Just begin. Begin by not chasing. Begin by not over-explaining. Begin by not returning to the same wound. Begin by not handing your peace to people who have already shown you they cannot protect it. Begin by choosing your own life with the same devotion you once gave to being chosen by others. Because the day you stop begging for a place in someone's life is the day you finally open the door to your own. And that door has been waiting for you longer than they ever did. Chapter 4. Build a life that does not collapse when people leave. There is a dangerous kind of living that many people never recognize until they are already exhausted. And it happens when your entire sense of peace, identity, confidence, and emotional stability becomes tied to whether certain people stay, reply, choose, approve, remember, care, or return. Because when your life is built around someone else's presence, their absence does not only hurt you, it makes you feel as if your whole world has lost its foundation. This is why the life you owe yourself cannot be built on being chosen by other people. Because people are human, people change, people misunderstand, people leave, people become distracted, people become selfish, people become confused, and if your entire emotional world depends on their consistency, then every shift in their behavior will feel like an earthquake inside your heart. You may have lived this way for years without calling it by its real name. You may have planned your happiness around someone's attention. You may have measured your value by how quickly they replied. You may have allowed one person's silence to ruin your entire day. You may have felt calm only when they were warm, and anxious the moment they became distant. You may have made someone else's mood the weather of your own soul. And that is not love. That is emotional dependence wearing the mask of love. Love can be beautiful, But when your life has no strong center of its own, love can become a place where you lose balance, because instead of sharing your life with someone, you start making them the source of your life. Instead of loving them freely, you begin needing them desperately. Instead of enjoying their presence, you begin fearing their absence. Instead of building yourself, you begin arranging your entire inner world around whether they still choose you today. The life you owe yourself begins when you stop making people your foundation and start building a foundation within yourself, not because you want to become cold, distant, or closed off, but because you finally understand that even the people you love should not carry the responsibility of holding your entire identity together. No person should have the power to make you forget who you are simply by leaving. No message should have the power to decide whether you feel worthy. No relationship should become so important that you abandon your purpose, your dreams, your health, your peace, and your self-respect, just to keep it alive. No connection should turn you into a version of yourself who cannot breathe unless someone else is giving permission through attention. This chapter is about rebuilding the center of your life. For too long, your center may have been someone else's approval, someone else's love, someone else's presence, someone else's validation, someone else's reply, someone else's emotional availability, and because of that, you may have felt powerful only when they were close and powerless when they pulled away. But imagine a life where your peace does not collapse because one person becomes distant. Imagine a life where you can miss someone without losing yourself. Imagine a life where you can love deeply without becoming emotionally homeless when love changes. Imagine a life where your confidence does not disappear because someone failed to recognize your value. Imagine a life where your days are not controlled by who chooses you, who ignores you, who returns or who leaves. That life is possible, but you must build it on purpose. You must begin by giving your own life weight again, because many people lose themselves not because others are too powerful, but because they have slowly made their own world too empty. When your life has no strong habits, no private purpose, no personal growth, no meaningful goals, no inner discipline, no relationship with yourself, and no daily structure that supports your mind, then people become too important because there is nothing else strong enough inside your life to hold you steady. This is why you cling. This is why you overthink. This is why you fear losing people who are not even treating you well. This is why one message can lift you and one silence can destroy you. It is not always because the person is extraordinary. Sometimes it is because you have stopped building an extraordinary relationship with your own life. The life you owe yourself asks you to return to your own world and make it worth living in again. Build mornings that do not begin with checking whether someone remembered you. Build nights that do not end with replaying conversations that made you feel small. Build routines that make your body stronger and your mind quieter. Build skills that increase your confidence. Build dreams that require your attention. Build private victories that no one can take away from you. Build discipline not as punishment, but as proof that you are no longer abandoning yourself. You must fill your life with things that bring you back to your own power, because an empty life will always make the wrong person look like salvation. When you have no purpose, attention feels like purpose. When you have no direction, someone else's presence feels like direction. When you have no self-worth, someone else's approval feels like worth. When you have no peace inside, someone's temporary affection feels like safety. But when you begin to build yourself, the same people who once felt necessary begin to look different, not because they changed, but because your emptiness no longer gives them a throne. This is one of the greatest secrets of healing. You do not always need to stop loving someone by force. Sometimes you simply need to start living your own life so deeply that their power over you naturally begins to shrink. When your life becomes full of purpose, growth, health, learning, creativity, discipline, prayer, reflection, movement, work, art, service, and meaningful silence, you stop making one person the whole sky. They may still matter, but they no longer become the sun. They may still have a place in your heart, but they no longer control the entire house. They may still affect you, but they no longer define you. This is not emotional coldness. This is balance. You were never meant to place your whole existence inside another person's hands. You were meant to love people from a place of fullness, not hunger. You were meant to connect without disappearing. You were meant to give without becoming empty. You were meant to care without becoming controlled. You were meant to stay soft without becoming available for emotional destruction. And building a life that does not collapse when people leave means you must stop waiting for life to begin after someone chooses you. Many people spend years saying, "When they love me properly, I will feel confident. When they stay, I will feel safe. When they apologize, I will move on. When they come back, I will feel whole. When they choose me, I will finally become happy." But the life you owe yourself cannot wait for another person's readiness. You must become happy in the places where they are absent. You must become confident without their praise. You must become peaceful without their apology. You must become whole without their return. You must become alive even before anyone notices your growth. This is difficult because part of you may feel that moving forward without them means giving up on the story you wanted. And sometimes the heart holds on to pain because pain is the last connection it has with someone it cannot keep. But there comes a time when you must choose whether you want to remain loyal to a memory or loyal to your future. Your future needs you more than your past does. The person you are becoming needs your energy more than the person who hurt you needs another explanation. Your dreams need your attention more than old wounds need another night of overthinking. Your peace needs your protection more than someone else's confusion needs your patience. Your life needs your presence more than absent people need your waiting. So begin building. Begin small if you must. Begin with one promise to yourself that you keep today. Begin with one room you clean, one page you read, one walk you take, one boundary you respect, one unhealthy habit you resist, one dream you write down, one decision that proves you are no longer living only for the people who never truly chose you. Do not underestimate small acts of self-return, because rebuilding your life does not always start with a grand transformation. Sometimes it starts with drinking water after crying all night. Sometimes it starts with getting out of bed when your heart feels heavy. Sometimes it starts with not sending the message. Sometimes it starts with cooking for yourself, dressing with care, breathing deeply, walking outside, turning your phone away, and reminding yourself that pain may visit you, but it does not get to become your home. Every small act of self-care becomes a brick in the foundation of a life that no longer collapses when people leave. At first, it may feel unnatural to put your own life first, especially if you have spent years being the person who adjusted, accommodated, waited, forgave, understood, explained, and made room for everyone else. You may feel guilty for choosing your peace. You may feel selfish for protecting your time. You may feel uncomfortable when you stop being constantly available. You may feel like you are doing something wrong simply because you are no longer betraying yourself. But guilt is not always truth. Sometimes guilt is just the sound of an old pattern dying. If you were trained to earn love through overgiving, then rest will feel selfish. If you were trained to avoid abandonment by pleasing people, then boundaries will feel cruel. If you were trained to silence your needs to keep others comfortable, then self-respect will feel unfamiliar. But unfamiliar does not mean wrong. Sometimes the right life feels strange at first because you have spent too long surviving in the wrong one. You must allow your nervous system to learn peace. Peace may feel boring after chaos. Consistency may feel strange after unpredictability. Healthy distance may feel painful after attachment. Self-respect may feel lonely after over-availability. But give yourself time. The part of you that was used to being anxious needs time to trust calmness. The part of you that was used to chasing needs time to trust stillness. The part of you that was used to begging needs time to trust that you can be loved without performing. Building a life that does not collapse when people leave also means learning to belong to yourself. Belonging to yourself means you stop becoming a different person just to be accepted in every room. It means you stop adjusting your truth to match someone else's comfort. It means you stop cutting pieces off your identity to fit into relationships that were too small for your soul. It means you stop treating rejection as a final judgment on your worth. When you belong to yourself, people can misunderstand you without destroying you. People can leave without erasing you. People can disapprove without controlling you. People can choose someone else without making you feel like nothing. People can fail to see your value, and you can still remain standing in it. This is the strength you are building, not the strength that never hurts, not the strength that never cries, not the strength that never misses anyone. Real strength is not the absence of pain, it is the ability to feel pain without handing your entire life back to the source of it. Real strength is missing someone and still not returning to disrespect. Real strength is wanting closure and still not begging for conversation from someone who keeps hurting you. Real strength is feeling lonely and still not opening the door to people who make your soul feel unsafe. Real strength is loving someone and still choosing yourself, because love without self-respect becomes a slow form of self-destruction. There will be days when the old pattern calls you back. A song may remind you. A memory may soften you. A lonely night may tempt you. A message may appear just when you were becoming strong. Someone may return with the same words that once melted your boundaries. Your heart may whisper, maybe this time will be different. And maybe it will. But before you open the door again, ask yourself, different in words or different in behavior? Different for one night or different with consistency? Different because they are lonely or different because they are mature? Different because they fear losing access or different because they finally understand responsibility? The life you owe yourself requires wisdom, not just emotion. Emotion remembers the good moments. Wisdom remembers the pattern. Emotion wants comfort now. Wisdom wants peace later. Emotion says, I miss them. Wisdom asks, do I miss them, or do I miss the version of them I created in my hope? Emotion says, answer the message. Wisdom asks, will this reopen a door I worked so hard to close? You need both softness and wisdom, but when softness keeps leading you back into pain, wisdom must become the voice you follow. A life that does not collapse when people leave is a life where you are rooted in something deeper than temporary affection. You are rooted in values, you are rooted in purpose, you are rooted in self-respect, you are rooted in a relationship with your own soul. You are rooted in the knowledge that your worth existed before they came and remains after they leave. And when you become rooted, you may still bend in the storms of loss, but you do not disappear. People can leave and you can grieve. People can disappoint you and you can feel the pain. People can misunderstand you and you can feel the sadness. But underneath it all, there is a quiet place inside you that says, I am still here. I still belong to myself. My life is still mine. That quiet place is what you are building. You build it every time you choose not to chase. You build it every time you keep a boundary. You build it every time you stop making excuses for someone's repeated behavior. You build it every time you honor your own feelings. You build it every time you choose a healthy habit over emotional chaos. You build it every time you do not allow loneliness to lead you back into places that made you question your worth. And one day you will notice that your life feels different. Not perfect, but different. Lighter, clearer, more yours. You will notice that someone's absence no longer feels like the end of your world. You will notice that you can miss people without making them your home again. You will notice that you can love deeply and still protect your peace. You will notice that you no longer wait outside closed doors because you have finally built a house within yourself. This is the life you owe yourself. A life where people are welcome, but they are not your foundation. A life where love is beautiful, but it is not your only reason to exist. A life where connection matters, but self-respect matters too. A life where you can give, but not until you disappear. A life where you can care, but not at the cost of your own soul. So build that life slowly, honestly, and patiently. Build it so strong that if someone leaves, you may cry, but you do not collapse. Build it so full that if someone ignores you, you may feel it, but you do not forget your value. Build it so meaningful that if someone fails to choose you, you do not spend the rest of your days questioning whether you were worth choosing. You were worth choosing before they arrived. You are worth choosing even if they leave. And the most important choice now is not whether they choose you. The most important choice is whether you will finally build a life where you choose yourself every single day. Chapter 5. The courage to disappoint people who benefited from your weakness. There comes a stage in your healing when you must accept that choosing yourself will not make everyone happy, because some people were only comfortable with you when your boundaries were weak, your forgiveness was endless, your silence was predictable, and your love was available even after they had done very little to deserve continued access to your heart. This is one of the hardest truths to face, because when you begin changing, not everyone will celebrate your growth. Some people will not see your boundaries as healing. They will see them as rebellion. Some people will not see your distance as peace. They will see it as punishment. Some people will not see your silence as maturity. They will see it as disrespect. Some people will not see your self-respect as strength. They will call it pride, because your new version no longer serves the comfort of their old behavior. And this is where you must become brave. Not loud brave, not dramatic brave, not the kind of bravery that needs to be announced to everyone. You need the quiet courage to let people misunderstand your healing without running back to explain yourself. Because if you keep explaining every boundary to people who already benefited from your lack of boundaries, you may end up spending your whole life trying to make your freedom acceptable to those who were comfortable with your captivity. For years, you may have been the easy one, the one who understood, the one who adjusted, the one who forgave quickly, the one who answered even when hurt, the one who stayed even when tired, the one who made peace even when they caused the damage, the one who swallowed pain so the relationship would not become uncomfortable, the one who protected other people's feelings while silently abandoning your own. And because you played that role for so long, some people forgot that you were also human. They forgot that you could get tired. They forgot that your heart could become heavy. They forgot that your patience had a limit. They forgot that your kindness was not a contract that allowed them to keep hurting you. They forgot that your presence was not guaranteed simply because you had stayed many times before. But the truth is, they did not always forget. Sometimes they knew exactly how much you were carrying, but they trusted your fear of losing them more than they respected your pain. That is why your healing may disturb them. When you stop giving the same access, they may ask why you changed. But what they really mean is, why are you no longer easy to use? When you stop responding to disrespect, they may say you became cold. But what they really mean is, why can I no longer hurt you without consequence? When you stop carrying the whole relationship alone, they may say you are distant. But what they really mean is, why are you no longer doing the emotional work for both of us? You must learn to hear the truth underneath people's reactions. Not every person who is upset with your boundary is hurt because they love you. Sometimes they are upset because your boundary removed a benefit they were receiving from your weakness. They were used to your overgiving. They were used to your quick forgiveness. They were used to your emotional availability. They were used to you choosing peace by sacrificing yourself. And now that you are choosing peace by protecting yourself, they do not know how to respond. This is the courage the life you owe yourself requires. You must be willing to disappoint people who expected you to remain the same broken version forever. You must be willing to disappoint the people who liked you most when you had no standards. You must be willing to disappoint the people who called your pain too much, but called their own needs important. You must be willing to disappoint the people who only loved your softness because they could shape it around their convenience. You must be willing to disappoint the people who preferred your silence because your truth would force them to look at their behavior. And this will not always feel good. At first, setting boundaries may feel like betrayal, even when you are only protecting yourself. Saying no may feel cruel, even when yes would destroy your peace. Walking away may feel selfish, even when staying would keep you wounded. Not explaining may feel wrong, even when explaining has never changed anything. Choosing yourself may feel lonely, even when choosing them has made you feel alone for years. That is because you are not only changing your behavior, you are breaking an emotional identity. You are breaking the identity of being the one who never leaves. You are breaking the identity of being the one who always understands. You are breaking the identity of being the one who forgives without receiving change. You are breaking the identity of being the one who accepts crumbs and calls them love. You are breaking the identity of being needed more than being respected. And when an old identity breaks, guilt often appears at the doorway. Guilt will tell you that you are becoming selfish. Guilt will tell you that you should answer one more time. Guilt will tell you that maybe you are being too hard. Guilt will tell you that you should not make people uncomfortable. Guilt will remind you of the good moments and try to make you forget the repeated pattern. Guilt will whisper that if you really loved them, you would stay available. But you must ask yourself whether that guilt is wisdom or conditioning. Sometimes guilt is not a sign that you are doing something wrong. Sometimes guilt is proof that you are finally doing something different from the version of you that was trained to survive through pleasing people. If you have spent years choosing others over yourself, then the first time you choose yourself, it will feel unnatural. But unnatural does not mean incorrect. It only means your soul is learning a new language. The language of self-respect may feel foreign at first. It may feel strange to say no and not apologize 10 times. It may feel strange to stop replying instantly to people who have not earned access. It may feel strange to let someone sit with the consequences of their own behavior. It may feel strange to stop fixing moods you did not break. It may feel strange to stop managing people's emotions so they do not have to face themselves. But every time you practice this new language, you become more fluent in freedom. And freedom is not always comfortable in the beginning. Freedom can feel like emptiness when you are used to emotional chaos. Freedom can feel like silence when you are used to always explaining. Freedom can feel like distance when you are used to being pulled into everyone's problems. Freedom can feel like loneliness when you are used to confusing being needed with being loved. But stay with it. Do not run back to the old cage just because the open sky feels unfamiliar. The people who benefited from your weakness may not clap when you become strong, and you must stop expecting them to. A person who enjoyed having power over your emotions will not celebrate the moment you take that power back. A person who relied on your fear of leaving will not rejoice when you finally learn to walk away. A person who used your kindness without honoring it will not be happy when your kindness becomes protected by boundaries. This is why you must stop measuring the correctness of your healing by the reactions of people who were comfortable with your pain. Your healing is still valid even if they call it attitude. Your boundary is still healthy even if they call it distance. Your silence is still peaceful, even if they call it arrogance. Your growth is still real, even if they say you changed for the worse. Your self-respect is still necessary, even if they accuse you of becoming difficult. Sometimes becoming difficult is exactly what you need. Difficult to manipulate, difficult to guilt, difficult to control, difficult to use, difficult to access without respect, difficult to pull back into the same cycle, difficult to convince that crumbs are enough, difficult to keep waiting at a door that was never fully opened for you. There is power in becoming difficult for the wrong people while becoming gentler with yourself. You do not need to become cold to stop being used. You do not need to become cruel to stop being available. You do not need to become heartless to stop giving your heart to people who treat it carelessly. You can remain kind, but your kindness must finally have wisdom. You can remain loving, but your love must finally have boundaries. You can remain soft, but your softness must no longer be a place where people wipe their feet. This is maturity. Maturity is realizing that not everyone who asks for access deserves closeness. Maturity is realizing that your peace needs protection, not constant explanation. Maturity is realizing that some relationships only survive because one person keeps abandoning themselves to maintain the illusion of connection. Maturity is realizing that you can forgive people without returning to the same position where they hurt you. Forgiveness does not mean unlimited access. You can forgive someone in your heart and still decide they are no longer safe for your life. You can wish someone well and still not answer their message. You can remember the good parts and still refuse to repeat the painful pattern. You can love someone from a distance and still admit that closeness with them costs too much peace. Some people will try to use your goodness against you. They will remind you of who you used to be. They will say, "You were never like this before." They will say, "You used to care more." They will say, "You have changed," and maybe you have changed. Maybe that is the point. Maybe the old you cared so much about keeping people that you forgot to keep yourself. Maybe the old you confused loyalty with self-destruction. Maybe the old you thought being chosen by others was worth more than being at peace with yourself. So when someone says you changed, do not always take it as an insult. Sometimes it means you stopped bleeding quietly for people who never brought bandages. Sometimes it means you stopped translating disrespect into excuses. Sometimes it means you stopped giving your whole heart to people who only gave you small pieces of attention. Sometimes it means you stopped living as though your only purpose was to be available whenever someone needed comfort. You changed because staying the same was costing you your soul. And any relationship that can only survive when you are weak is not a relationship you should be desperate to save. Read that truth slowly. Any relationship that requires your silence to continue is not peace. Any relationship that requires your pain to remain hidden is not safe. Any relationship that requires you to abandon your standards is not love. Any relationship that requires you to become smaller so someone else can avoid growth is not a blessing. The life you owe yourself will require you to stop protecting connections that do not protect you. It will require you to let some people be offended by your absence. It will require you to let some people misread your boundaries. It will require you to let some people rewrite the story so they can avoid facing what they did. It will require you to let some people make you the villain simply because you stopped allowing them to treat you like a place with no doors. Let them. Let them tell the story from their level of awareness. Let them call your peace pride. Let them call your distance punishment. Let them call your standards impossible. Let them call your healing selfish. You do not need to correct every false version of you that exists in someone else's mind, especially when correcting it would require returning to a conversation that already stole too much from you. There is freedom in not needing to be understood by everyone. When you are still begging to be chosen, being misunderstood feels unbearable because you think their opinion decides your worth. But when you begin choosing yourself, you realize that someone can misunderstand you and you can still remain whole. Someone can judge you and you can still remain peaceful. Someone can lose access to you and still believe they did nothing wrong, and you can still move forward without forcing them to see the truth. Not every battle deserves your voice. Some battles are won through silence. Some chapters close without explanation. Some people only understand your value after your absence becomes permanent. Some lessons do not need an announcement. They need a decision, and your decision must be this: I will no longer live as a version of myself that exists only to keep other people comfortable. This decision may change your friendships. It may change your relationships. It may change your family dynamics. It may change the way people approach you. It may reduce the number of people around you. It may make your life quieter than before, but quieter is not always worse. A quiet life filled with peace is better than a crowded life filled with emotional exhaustion. A smaller circle with respect is better than a wide circle where you feel unseen. A season of solitude with healing is better than constant company that keeps reopening wounds. A life where fewer people have access to you is not a failure if the people who remain know how to honor your heart. You must stop being afraid of losing people who were never afraid of losing you. This does not mean you become careless with relationships. It means you stop worshiping connection more than truth. It means you stop treating every ending like a personal failure. It means you stop holding on to people simply because you are afraid of starting again without them. Sometimes losing access to certain people is the beginning of gaining access to yourself. You gain access to your own thoughts again. You gain access to your own dreams again. You gain access to your own peace again. You gain access to your own confidence again. You gain access to the part of you that was buried under years of trying to be easy to love. And once you meet that part of yourself again, you will understand why this chapter had to happen. The courage to disappoint people is really the courage to stop disappointing yourself. Because every time you said yes when your soul said no, you disappointed yourself. Every time you stayed silent when your heart needed honesty, you disappointed yourself. Every time you returned to people who made you feel small, you disappointed yourself. Every time you accepted less than you knew you deserved, you disappointed yourself. Every time you chose their comfort over your peace, you disappointed yourself. Now it is time to stop. Let someone else be disappointed for once. Let them be disappointed that you are no longer easy to reach. Let them be disappointed that guilt no longer controls you. Let them be disappointed that your forgiveness now comes with wisdom. Let them be disappointed that your heart is no longer open to people who only enter to take. Their disappointment is not always your emergency. You do not have to rescue everyone from the discomfort caused by your self-respect. You do not have to soften every boundary until it becomes useless. You do not have to explain every decision until people approve. You do not have to keep giving people access just because they are not ready to lose it. The life you owe yourself begins when you become loyal to the person inside you who has been waiting for protection. That person has been patient. That person has been hurting quietly. That person has watched you choose others again and again. That person has whispered, "What about me?" every time you gave your last energy to someone who never asked if you were empty. That person has carried the pain of being ignored by the very soul they lived inside. Now you must turn toward that person and say, "I am sorry I left you for people who never truly chose us. I am here now. I will not abandon you again." This is where your strength becomes sacred. Not loud, not cruel, not bitter, sacred. Because now your strength is not about proving them wrong. It is about making yourself safe. It is about becoming a home to your own heart. It is about refusing to hand your peace to people who only know how to damage it. It is about protecting the life that you still have time to build. And yes, some people may leave when you become stronger. Let them leave. If your boundaries make them leave, they were attached to your lack of boundaries, not your soul. If your standards make them disappear, they were attached to what they could get, not what they could honor. If your peace offends them, they were attached to the version of you that allowed chaos. If your growth makes them uncomfortable, they were attached to your smallness, not your becoming. The people meant for the healed version of you will not need you to remain broken so they can feel powerful. They will meet your boundaries with respect. They will meet your honesty with maturity. They will meet your peace with care. They will not punish you for finally learning to protect yourself. They will not make you feel guilty for no longer bleeding quietly. Until those people arrive, choose the quiet courage of being misunderstood. Choose the discipline of not going back. Choose the peace of not explaining yourself to those committed to benefiting from your confusion. Choose the strength of disappointing others before you keep disappointing your own soul. Because the life you owe yourself is not built by pleasing everyone. It is built by finally becoming brave enough to protect the person you were always supposed to choose. Chapter 6. Become the person you were waiting for. There is a kind of loneliness that does not come from being physically alone, and it is often more painful than any empty room, because it happens when you are surrounded by people but still feel unseen, unheard, unsupported, and emotionally abandoned in the places where your heart needed care the most. You may have known this loneliness for a long time. You may have smiled in front of people while carrying questions no one asked about. You may have helped others through storms while no one noticed the storm inside you. You may have listened to everyone's pain while secretly wishing someone would sit beside you and say, "I know you are tired too." You may have spent years becoming the safe place for people who never became a safe place for you. And because of that, A part of you may have spent life waiting for someone to understand without being forced, waiting for someone to choose you without confusion, waiting for someone to protect your heart the way you protected theirs, waiting for someone to love you without making you feel like your needs were too heavy, waiting for someone to finally become the person you needed when you were breaking. But the life you owe yourself begins when you realize that you cannot spend the rest of your life waiting for someone else to become the rescue you denied yourself. This does not mean you do not deserve love. It does not mean you must carry everything alone. It does not mean you should close your heart and convince yourself that nobody will ever be safe. It simply means that the first person who must stop abandoning you is you. Because sometimes the deepest betrayal is not only what others did to you, it is the way you left yourself behind while trying to be chosen by them. You ignored your own tiredness because someone else needed you. You silenced your own truth because someone else might leave. You swallowed your own pain because someone else might feel guilty. You postponed your own healing because someone else kept pulling you back into their chaos. You stopped listening to your heart because you were too busy trying to understand people who never tried to understand you. And now your soul is asking to come home. Becoming the person you were waiting for means you stop treating your own needs like interruptions. It means you stop acting as if your pain only matters when someone else validates it. It means you stop waiting for an apology before you allow yourself to heal. It means you stop waiting for someone to return before you allow yourself to move forward. It means you stop waiting for someone to love you correctly before you begin loving yourself with consistency, patience, and protection. For years, you may have given others the kind of care you secretly needed. You may have been gentle with people who were harsh with you. You may have been patient with people who were careless with you. You may have reassured people who left you questioning yourself. You may have stayed loyal to people who made you feel replaceable. You may have become everything for others that you were still waiting for someone to become for you. But now the question is simple. When will you give yourself the same love you kept giving away? When will you speak to yourself with the same softness you used for people who hurt you? When will you defend your own peace with the same loyalty you used to defend relationships that drained you? When will you stop making excuses for people and start making room for your own healing? When will you stop running after those who walk away and start walking toward the version of yourself that has been waiting behind all this pain? This chapter is not about becoming selfish. It is about becoming responsible for the life inside you. There is a wounded version of you that still believes someone else must arrive and fix what others broke. That version is tired. That version is hungry for safety. That version wants to be chosen so badly because being chosen feels like proof that the pain was not your fault. That version wants someone to finally stay, finally understand, finally apologize, finally love you in a way that makes all the waiting feel meaningful. But there is also a wiser version of you. And that wiser version knows that if you keep waiting for other people to repair your worth, you will keep handing your power to those who may never understand the depth of what they damaged. You must become the one who stops the cycle. You must become the one who says, I will not speak to myself the way they made me feel. You must become the one who says, I will not punish myself because someone else failed to value me. You must become the one who says, I will not keep reopening a wound just because I miss the person connected to it. You must become the one who says, I will no longer abandon my own soul to keep a place in someone else's life. This is how real healing begins. Not with a perfect day, not with sudden confidence, not with never missing them again, not with waking up completely free from the memories. Healing often begins in small, quiet decisions that no one sees. It begins when you choose rest instead of overthinking. It begins when you choose silence instead of sending the message. It begins when you choose water, food, movement, prayer, journaling, walking, working, learning, creating, breathing, instead of sinking back into the same emotional darkness. Healing begins when you become gentle with the version of yourself that stayed too long. Do not hate that version. Do not insult that version. Do not call that version weak. That version was trying to survive with the tools it had. That version believed love meant holding on. That version believed patience would eventually be rewarded. That version believed that if you gave enough, someone would finally see your heart clearly. That version was not stupid. That version was wounded, hopeful, loyal, and human. So do not heal by becoming cruel to your past self. Heal by becoming the protection your past self never had. Imagine sitting beside the version of you who waited for messages, cried in silence, accepted less, forgave too quickly, and kept returning to people who made your heart feel unsafe. Imagine looking at that version with compassion instead of judgment. Imagine saying, "I understand why you stayed. I understand why you hoped. I understand why you were afraid to let go. But I am here now, and I will not let us keep living like that." That is the moment your relationship with yourself begins to change. Because for too long, you may have been kinder to everyone else than you were to yourself. You may have forgiven others while punishing yourself. You may have comforted others while criticizing yourself. You may have protected others while exposing your own heart to the same pain again and again. You may have understood everyone's wounds while ignoring your own. Now it is time to turn that kindness inward. Become the person who checks on your own heart. Become the person who notices when you are tired. Become the person who does not force you to keep giving from an empty place. Become the person who removes you from rooms where your spirit feels unwanted. Become the person who speaks truth when your fear wants to make excuses. Become the person who does not let loneliness drive you back into the hands of people who never knew how to hold you carefully. You must learn to mother your own pain and father your own discipline. There will be days when your wounded heart wants comfort. And on those days, you must give yourself tenderness without giving yourself permission to return to what broke you. There will be days when your emotions are loud, and on those days you must be firm enough to protect your future from temporary weakness. There will be days when you miss people who hurt you, and on those days you must remind yourself that missing someone is not always a sign to reconnect. Sometimes it is only proof that you are human. This balance is important. Too much harshness will make you feel punished. Too much softness without wisdom will lead you back into the same cycle. You need both compassion and discipline. You need the softness to understand your pain and the strength to stop letting that pain make decisions for your life. The person you were waiting for is not someone who removes all difficulty from your life. It is the version of you that finally learns how to stand beside yourself through difficulty. It is the version of you that no longer disappears when things become hard. It is the version of you that does not hand the steering wheel of your future to your wounds, your fear, your attachment, or your loneliness. This version of you is built through repetition. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you become safer to yourself. Every time you respect your own boundary, you become more trustworthy to yourself. Every time you choose peace over drama, you become more loyal to yourself. Every time you refuse to beg for love, you become more connected to yourself. Every time you choose not to abandon your own needs, your inner world begins to believe, "Maybe I am safe with me now." That sentence matters more than you realize, because many people do not feel safe with themselves. They are alone with their thoughts and immediately run toward distraction. They feel lonely and immediately reach for the wrong person. They feel sadness and immediately blame themselves. They feel rejected and immediately search for someone to validate them. They feel emptiness and immediately try to fill it with attention, noise, scrolling, memories, or old connections. But becoming the person you were waiting for means you learn to sit with yourself without running away. You learn to hear your pain without drowning in it. You learn to feel loneliness without turning it into self-betrayal. You learn to comfort yourself without needing the person who caused the wound to become the bandage. You learn to become present inside your own life, even when that life is not yet what you want it to be. And slowly, your relationship with solitude changes. At first, being alone may have felt like rejection. It may have felt like proof that nobody cared, nobody stayed, nobody chose you, nobody understood. But as you heal, Being alone begins to feel different. It begins to feel like a quiet room where you can hear yourself again. It begins to feel like space. It begins to feel like recovery. It begins to feel like freedom from the emotional noise of people who kept pulling you away from your own center. You begin to realize that solitude is not punishment when you are no longer using other people to escape yourself. In solitude, you can rebuild your standards. In solitude, you can remember your dreams. In solitude, you can notice what drains you and what restores you. In solitude, you can hear the truth that chaos kept covering. In solitude, you can finally ask yourself what kind of life you actually want. Not the life you were performing for others, not the life you were building around being chosen, but the life that feels honest to your soul. And this is where your power grows, because a person who is no longer afraid of being alone cannot be controlled by temporary attention. A person who is no longer desperate to be chosen cannot be manipulated by mixed signals. A person who has become a home to themselves no longer begs for shelter in places that feel unsafe. A person who can sit with their own emotions no longer needs chaos to feel alive. This is why becoming the person you were waiting for is so powerful. It changes what you accept. It changes what you chase. It changes what you call love. It changes who gets access to you. It changes how quickly you walk away from disrespect. It changes how calmly you handle absence. It changes how deeply you trust your own intuition when something feels wrong. You stop needing everyone to understand you because you understand yourself. You stop needing everyone to validate your feelings because you have learned to listen to them. You stop needing everyone to choose you because you are no longer abandoning yourself. You stop needing someone else to rescue you because you are finally participating in your own healing. And when you participate in your own healing, you become dangerous to every pattern that once controlled you. You become dangerous to the habit of chasing. You become dangerous to the habit of over-explaining. You become dangerous to the habit of forgiving without change. You become dangerous to the habit of accepting emotional crumbs. You become dangerous to the old belief that being chosen by others is more important than being loyal to yourself. The old version of you may still visit sometimes, and that is okay. There may be days when you feel the urge to return. There may be nights when you miss the comfort of familiar pain. There may be moments when you wonder if choosing yourself is making you too distant, too guarded, too careful, too different. There may be times when you feel tired of being strong and wish someone else would carry the weight. In those moments, do not shame yourself. Sit with yourself, breathe. Remember what you are building. You are building a life where your peace is not dependent on unreliable people. You are building a heart that can love without disappearing. You are building a mind that can feel pain without creating a prison from it. You are building a future that is not controlled by who failed to choose you in the past. This is not easy work, but it is sacred work. Because when you become the person you were waiting for, you stop living like a victim of everyone else's emotional absence. You begin to realize that while you could not control who abandoned you, ignored you, disappointed you, replaced you, misunderstood you, or failed to choose you, you can control whether you continue abandoning yourself after they are gone. That is your power. You cannot go back and make people love you correctly. You cannot force them to see what they lost. You cannot make them regret what they did. You cannot rewrite the years you spent giving more than you received, but you can decide that the rest of your life will not be a continuation of that wound. You can decide that from now on, your heart has a protector. Your dreams have a builder. Your peace has a guard. Your pain has a listener. Your future has someone willing to fight for it. And that someone is you, not the perfect you, not the fully healed you, not the you who never cries, never doubts, never misses, never falls. The real you, the growing you, the tired but trying you, the wounded but awakening you, the version of you that is finally willing to stand up inside your own life and say, I matter too. Those 3 words can change everything. I matter too. Not only when someone chooses me, not only when someone praises me, not only when someone needs me, not only when someone returns, not only when someone finally understands. I matter now. In this moment, even while healing, even while alone, even while rebuilding, even while learning how to stop betraying myself. When you truly begin to believe that, your whole life starts to shift. You stop accepting relationships where you must disappear to be loved. You stop shrinking your voice to keep people comfortable. You stop measuring your worth by someone else's emotional availability. You stop calling abandonment a challenge. You stop calling inconsistency love. You stop calling anxiety passion. You stop calling self-betrayal loyalty. You begin to call things by their real names. Disrespect becomes disrespect. Confusion becomes confusion. Emotional absence becomes emotional absence. Half-love becomes half-love. A pattern becomes a pattern. And once you name the truth, it becomes harder to keep pretending. That is why this chapter matters. Because the life you owe yourself is not only about leaving people who never chose you, it is about becoming someone who no longer recreates the same abandonment within yourself. It is about no longer treating yourself like an option while demanding others treat you like a priority. It is about no longer neglecting your own soul while waiting for someone else to honor it. You become the person you were waiting for when you choose your own well-being before your attachment, when you choose your own growth before your fear, when you choose your own future before your past, and when you choose your own peace before the temporary comfort of being wanted by people who do not know how to value what they want. So today, stop waiting for rescue and begin returning. Return to your own heart. Return to your own voice. Return to your own dreams. Return to your own body. Return to your own peace. Return to your own life. Return to the person inside you who has been waiting not for someone else, but for you. And when you return to yourself fully, you will discover something beautiful. You were never truly empty. You were only giving too much of yourself away. Chapter 7. The life you owe yourself starts the moment you stop waiting. There comes a powerful moment in your life when you realize that the future you keep dreaming about will not arrive while you are still sitting emotionally at the feet of people who never chose you properly. And this moment may feel uncomfortable, because it forces you to admit that you have been waiting for permission to live, waiting for someone to return, waiting for someone to apologize, waiting for someone to understand, waiting for someone to regret losing you, waiting for someone to finally see your value, while the life inside you has been standing quietly in the background, asking when you will stop postponing yourself. The life you owe yourself does not begin when the right people finally love you, and it does not begin when the wrong people finally feel sorry for what they did. It begins in the exact moment you decide that your peace, growth, purpose, dignity, and future can no longer remain frozen inside someone else's uncertainty. It begins when you stop treating your own life like a waiting room and start treating it like something sacred that deserves your full attention now, not later, not after closure, not after their apology, not after they choose you, not after they change, but now. For too long, you may have placed your life on pause without even realizing it. You may have told yourself that you would become happy after a certain person came back, that you would become confident after someone finally chose you, that you would feel free after someone admitted they were wrong, that you would begin healing after someone explained why they hurt you. But slowly this waiting became a prison, and the painful truth is that some people can keep living while you keep waiting for them to become the key to a door they never intended to open. You must understand this deeply. Waiting can become a form of self-abandonment when it stops you from living the life that is already in your hands. It may feel loyal, it may feel hopeful, it may feel romantic, it may feel patient, but if waiting for someone else keeps making you disappear from yourself, then it is no longer love. It is a quiet surrender of your own existence. The life you owe yourself asks you to stop waiting for emotional rescue from people who were careless with your heart. It asks you to stop waiting for people to become aware of your value before you begin valuing yourself. It asks you to stop waiting for people to regret losing you before you stop returning to places where you were repeatedly made to feel small. It asks you to stop waiting for someone else to write the final chapter of a story that has already taught you everything you needed to know. Because sometimes the lesson is not hidden. Sometimes the lesson is not complicated. Sometimes the lesson is simply that a person can want your warmth without respecting your heart. They can enjoy your loyalty without offering commitment. They can miss your presence without becoming mature enough to protect it. And they can fear losing access to you without ever learning how to love you correctly while they still have it. And if you keep waiting for such people to become the reason your life begins, then you will keep delaying the person you were meant to become. This final chapter is not about anger. It is not about revenge. It is not about proving your worth to anyone. It is not about becoming untouchable, emotionless, bitter, or impossible to love. It is about finally taking your life back from the invisible hands of people who were never supposed to hold that much power over you. The life you owe yourself starts with one decision. I will no longer keep my future trapped inside someone else's failure to choose me. That sentence must become more than words. It must become a daily practice. It must become the way you wake up, the way you make choices, the way you protect your attention, the way you speak to yourself, the way you stop running back to old wounds, the way you stop allowing loneliness to negotiate with your standards, the way you stop confusing familiar pain with belonging. Because the truth is, your old life may keep calling you back. Old conversations may return in your mind. Old memories may soften your strength. Old emotions may whisper that maybe this time they will be different. Old attachments may try to convince you that leaving means you never truly loved them. Old guilt may rise and ask you whether you are being too harsh, too distant, too careful, too changed. But you must remember that growth does not mean your heart never looks back. Growth means you finally know what not to return to, even when part of you still remembers why you stayed. You can miss someone and still know they are not healthy for you. You can love someone and still choose distance. You can forgive someone and still never give them the same access again. You can understand someone's pain and still refuse to become a place where their pain keeps damaging yours. You can remember the beautiful moments and still admit that the pattern was breaking you. This is wisdom. Wisdom does not erase feeling. Wisdom teaches feeling where to stand. And in the life you owe yourself, your feelings are allowed to exist, but they are no longer allowed to destroy you. Your sadness can visit, but it cannot become your identity. Your loneliness can speak, but it cannot make decisions for your future. Your memories can appear, but they cannot drag you back into a life you fought so hard to survive. Your love can remain soft, but it must now be guided by self-respect. There is a version of you that still thinks the life you owe yourself will feel easy once you choose it. But the truth is, choosing yourself may feel painful before it feels powerful. It may feel lonely before it feels peaceful. It may feel strange before it feels natural. It may feel like loss before it reveals itself as freedom. This is why many people return to what broke them, not because they do not know the truth, but because the beginning of freedom can feel emptier than the familiar cage. The cage may have hurt, but at least it was known. The silence after leaving may feel unfamiliar. The space after choosing yourself may feel too wide. The absence of chaos may feel like nothing is happening. But do not mistake peace for emptiness simply because your nervous system became used to being disturbed. When you have lived too long in emotional survival, calmness can feel like abandonment. When you have been addicted to proving your worth, rest can feel like laziness. When you have been used to chasing, stillness can feel like failure. When you have been trained to overgive, boundaries can feel selfish. But none of these feelings mean you are going the wrong way. They only mean you are entering a life your wounds do not recognize yet. Give yourself time to become comfortable with peace. The life you owe yourself will not be built in one dramatic moment. It will be built in small decisions that look ordinary from the outside but feel revolutionary inside your soul. It will be built every time you do not send the message. It will be built every time you let someone misunderstand you without begging them to see your side. It will be built every time you choose sleep over overthinking, discipline over emotional chaos, dignity over attachment, and self-respect over temporary attention. It will be built in the mornings when you wake up heavy but still choose to move. It will be built in the nights when you miss someone, but still do not return to the version of yourself who begged. It will be built in the moments when you want to explain yourself, but remember that people who benefited from your silence may not deserve another long paragraph from your pain. It will be built in the private places where nobody claps, nobody notices, nobody praises you, but your soul quietly says, "Thank you for not abandoning me again." That is the kind of life that becomes unshakable, not because nothing hurts you anymore, but because you no longer hand your whole identity to whatever hurts you. There is a difference between pain and collapse. Pain means something touched your heart. Collapse means something took control of your whole life. You may still feel pain when people leave, disappoint you, misunderstand you, or fail to choose you, but you do not have to collapse anymore. You do not have to fall apart every time someone proves they were not meant to stay. You do not have to lose your direction because someone else lost their ability to value you. You can feel the wound and still walk forward. You can cry and still choose yourself. You can grieve and still rebuild. This is the maturity that changes your life, because when you stop waiting to be chosen, you start choosing what chooses you back. You start choosing friendships that do not make you feel like a burden. You start choosing routines that restore your mind instead of draining it. You start choosing work that builds your confidence. You start choosing quiet mornings over emotional noise. You start choosing honesty over pretending. You start choosing people whose actions do not require constant translation. You begin to notice the difference between people who love the idea of you and people who honor the reality of you. You begin to notice who only wants your strength but cannot sit with your weakness, who enjoys your kindness but does not respect your limits, who loves your presence but avoids your pain, who calls you important but treats you as optional when effort is required. And as your awareness grows, your tolerance changes. You no longer tolerate confusion disguised as mystery. You no longer tolerate inconsistency disguised as busyness. You no longer tolerate disrespect disguised as honesty. You no longer tolerate emotional absence disguised as independence. You no longer tolerate people who keep asking for your understanding while refusing to understand the damage they create. This does not make you hard to love. It makes you harder to misuse, and that is necessary. The life you owe yourself requires you to become unavailable for patterns that once felt normal. It requires you to stop giving the same old access to people who never changed their old behavior. It requires you to stop calling every return a sign, every apology a breakthrough, every small effort a transformation, and every moment of attention a reason to ignore the entire pattern. The pattern matters. One good day does not erase months of confusion. One sweet message does not erase repeated disrespect. One apology does not erase unchanged behavior. One emotional confession does not erase the way someone treats you when their loneliness passes. You must become wise enough to look at the whole story, not just the page that makes you want to stay, because your heart, when hungry, will focus on the smallest evidence of love and ignore the largest evidence of harm. This is why you need self-respect to become stronger than nostalgia. Nostalgia remembers the laughter, the warmth, the early promises, the late conversations, the moments that made you believe something beautiful was possible. But self-respect remembers the anxiety, the waiting, the confusion, the silence, the excuses, the nights you cried, the days you felt invisible, and the ways you had to shrink yourself to keep the connection alive. Both memories are real, but only one will protect your future. The life you owe yourself means you stop letting your heart edit the story until pain looks like love. It means you stop deleting the hard chapters just because some pages were beautiful. It means you stop confusing the beginning of a connection with the truth of its pattern. It means you stop giving people lifelong access because of who they were for a moment. People must be measured by consistency, not potential. Potential is what you imagined. Consistency is what they proved. Potential is what kept you hoping. Consistency is what kept hurting you. Potential is the dream. Consistency is the data. And if the data keeps telling you that someone does not choose you with care, then the life you owe yourself requires you to believe reality more than fantasy. This is where your new life becomes possible. Because once you accept reality, you stop spending energy fighting it. You stop trying to turn emotionally unavailable people into safe homes. You stop trying to make careless people gentle through overgiving. You stop trying to earn loyalty from people who only understand convenience. You stop trying to prove your worth to those who already know your worth but still choose not to honor it. And that energy returns to you. The energy you used to spend waiting can become discipline. The energy you used to spend overthinking can become creativity. The energy you used to spend chasing can become healing. The energy you used to spend explaining can become silence. The energy you used to spend begging can become boundaries. The energy you used to spend hurting can become growth. This is how a person transforms, not by suddenly forgetting what happened, but by refusing to let what happened continue owning their future. You may not be able to control who left, who lied, who failed, who ignored you, who replaced you, who used your kindness, who misunderstood your silence, or who treated your loyalty like something cheap, but you can control whether you keep making your life a monument to their absence. You can control whether you wake up tomorrow and choose one action that belongs to your future instead of your wound. You can control whether you keep feeding old pain with new attention. You can control whether you keep checking doors that already closed. You can control whether you keep calling your attachment love when it has been asking you to betray yourself. You are not powerless. You may be wounded, but you are not powerless. You may be tired, but you are not finished. You may have lost time, but you have not lost your life. And this is very important. Do not allow shame to steal the years that pain already touched. Many people waste more time hating themselves for staying too long than they spent staying. They punish themselves for believing, for hoping, for trusting, for forgiving, for loving someone who did not love them properly. But shame will not heal you. Shame will only keep you chained to the version of yourself you are trying to outgrow. Forgive yourself. Forgive yourself for not knowing sooner. Forgive yourself for ignoring signs because your heart wanted a different ending. Forgive yourself for giving chances to people who used them poorly. Forgive yourself for needing time to leave. Forgive yourself for missing someone who hurt you. Forgive yourself for being human in a season where you wanted love so badly that you accepted less than your soul deserved. Self-forgiveness is part of the life you owe yourself, because you cannot build a peaceful future while attacking the past version of you who was only trying to survive. That version needs compassion, not punishment. That version needs understanding, not hatred. That version needs to be held by the person you are becoming, not rejected again by the one person who should finally choose them. You owe yourself kindness after years of being hard on your own heart. But kindness does not mean weakness. Kindness means you stop beating yourself for what happened, while still becoming disciplined enough not to repeat the same pattern. Kindness says, I understand why I stayed. Discipline says, but I will not stay there again. Kindness says, I forgive myself for the choices I made from pain. Discipline says, now I will make different choices from wisdom. You need both. You need the kindness to heal and the discipline to grow. And as you grow, people from your old life may not recognize you. They may expect the same reactions and meet your silence. They may expect the same access and meet your boundary. They may expect the same emotional availability and meet your peace. They may expect you to keep explaining and meet your decision. They may expect you to keep waiting and discover that you have finally moved. Do not feel guilty for becoming someone old patterns can no longer control. That is not betrayal. That is transformation. Your life is allowed to become unrecognizable to the people who only knew the version of you that kept surviving. Your love is allowed to become more selective. Your energy is allowed to become more protected. Your time is allowed to become more sacred. Your silence is allowed to become more peaceful. Your heart is allowed to become more careful without becoming closed. Your future is allowed to become more important than your past. And one day, if you keep choosing yourself, the emotional weight that once controlled you will become lighter. The name that once hurt to hear will become a name, not a wound. The memory that once pulled you back will become a lesson, not a command. The place that once broke you will become part of your story, not the whole story. The person you thought you could not live without will become proof that you can survive what once felt impossible. This is not because you stopped caring overnight. It is because you stopped feeding the part of you that believed your life could not continue without them. Healing is not always forgetting. Sometimes healing is remembering without returning. Sometimes healing is loving without losing yourself. Sometimes healing is accepting that someone mattered deeply but still was not meant to remain close. Sometimes healing is no longer needing the past to change in order for you to move forward. That is freedom. And freedom is what the life you owe yourself is truly about. Not freedom from love, but freedom from begging. Not freedom from connection, but freedom from self-abandonment. Not freedom from caring, but freedom from being controlled by people who never learned how to care for you correctly. There is a future version of you waiting on the other side of this decision, and that version is not perfect, but it is peaceful. That version does not wake up every day wondering why someone did not choose them. That version does not hand their self-worth to unreliable people. That version does not confuse anxiety with passion or inconsistency with mystery. That version does not beg for seats at tables where their heart is treated like an inconvenience. That version knows how to walk away without hating. That version knows how to love without disappearing. That version knows how to forgive without returning. That version knows how to be alone without feeling worthless. That version knows how to choose peace even when the heart still remembers the chaos. And every decision you make now is either bringing you closer to that version or pulling you back into the old one. This is why you must become honest with yourself in small moments, because transformation is not only found in big life-changing decisions. Transformation is found in the moment you stop yourself from checking their page. It is found in the moment you choose not to reread old messages. It is found in the moment you refuse to turn one lonely night into a doorway back to the same pain. It is found in the moment you speak to yourself gently instead of blaming yourself for feeling weak. It is found in the moment you say, "I want to go back, but I will not." That sentence is strength. Real strength is not always loud. Sometimes real strength is lying in bed with a heavy heart and still refusing to betray your healing. Sometimes real strength is crying and still not calling. Sometimes real strength is missing them and still choosing silence. Sometimes real strength is accepting that the person who felt like home was actually a place where you kept losing yourself. The life you owe yourself is built from these moments, and as you build it, you will slowly understand that choosing yourself is not a one-time event. It is a daily return. You choose yourself when you protect your sleep. You choose yourself when you feed your body. You choose yourself when you move toward your dreams. You choose yourself when you stop entertaining conversations that disturb your peace. You choose yourself when you no longer accept confusion as a normal part of love. You choose yourself when you remember that your life is not less important than the lives of the people you kept saving. You choose yourself when you stop being impressed by words that do not become behavior. You choose yourself when you stop confusing being needed with being valued. You choose yourself when you stop giving people the best version of you while giving yourself the exhausted remains. That last truth must stay with you. You cannot keep giving your best energy to people who treat you like an option and then wonder why you feel empty when you return to yourself. You cannot keep pouring your patience, attention, kindness, loyalty, forgiveness, and emotional strength into people who do not pour back and then expect your soul to remain full. You cannot keep making everyone else feel seen while ignoring the part of you that has been quietly begging for your own care. The life you owe yourself means you become careful with your inner resources. Your attention is not cheap. Your time is not endless. Your heart is not a public place. Your peace is not something everyone deserves to disturb. Your forgiveness is not a door people can keep entering without change. Your presence is not something people should receive while offering only confusion. You must stop living like access to you has no value. When you begin to value your own presence, You stop placing yourself in spaces where you are tolerated but not treasured. You stop chasing people who make you feel like you are too much when all you asked for was honesty. You stop explaining your worth to people who benefit from pretending not to see it. You stop trying to convince emotionally unavailable people to become homes for your heart. Instead, you build your own home inside yourself, a home made of self-trust, a home made of boundaries, a home made of discipline, a home made of peace, a home made of self-forgiveness, a home made of dreams that do not depend on who stays, a home made of mornings where you are not waiting for someone else to decide how you feel, a home made of nights where your heart can finally rest without replaying the same wound. And when you become that home, you stop begging for shelter in people who only offer storms. You may still love, you may still connect, you may still open your heart again one day, but you will do it differently. You will do it from fullness, not desperation, from wisdom, not hunger, from peace, not fear, from self-respect, not the need to prove you are enough. And that is when love becomes safer, because you no longer use love as an escape from yourself. The life you owe yourself is not a life without people. It is a life where people are no longer allowed to replace your relationship with yourself. It is a life where connection adds to you, but does not erase you. It is a life where love is welcome, but not at the cost of dignity. It is a life where you can care deeply, but still walk away when care is not returned with respect. This is the final lesson of this book. You do not need to become chosen by everyone to live a meaningful life, but you must stop rejecting yourself in the hope that someone else will accept you. You must stop abandoning your own dreams to keep people who do not support them. You must stop abandoning your own peace to maintain relationships that only survive through your silence. You must stop abandoning your own truth to fit into places that were never built for your soul. You must stop abandoning your own future because your past still knows how to call your name. Your life is calling too, and its voice may not be as loud as your pain, but it is deeper. It is calling you through the exhaustion that says you cannot keep living like this. It is calling you through the quiet dreams you have delayed. It is calling you through the peace you feel when certain people are not around. It is calling you through the part of your heart that still believes there must be more to life than waiting, chasing, explaining, forgiving, and hurting. There is more. There is a version of life where your mornings feel lighter. There is a version of life where your heart is not constantly bracing for disappointment. There is a version of life where your energy goes into becoming, not begging. There is a version of life where you no longer measure your value by who failed to see it. There is a version of life where you become so rooted in yourself that rejection no longer feels like destruction. That life will not arrive all at once, but it will arrive through your choices. Choose not to wait today. Choose not to chase today. Choose not to shrink today. Choose not to return today. Choose not to abandon yourself today. And if tomorrow becomes hard, choose again. This is how a life is rebuilt, not through one perfect decision, but through repeated loyalty to the person you are becoming. One day you will be proud that you did not go back. One day you will be grateful that you stopped waiting. One day you will understand why certain doors had to close. One day you will see that the people who did not choose you helped push you toward the life where you finally chose yourself. And when that day comes, you will not need revenge. You will not need them to suffer. You will not need them to watch you win. You will not need them to regret losing you. Your peace will be enough. Your growth will be enough. Your freedom will be enough. You will finally understand that the life you owe yourself was never hidden inside someone else's heart. It was never waiting in their apology, their return, their approval, or their love. It was waiting inside your own decision to stop disappearing for people who never truly saw you. So begin now, not when you feel completely ready, not when the pain disappears, not when loneliness becomes easy, not when everyone understands, not when the past stops speaking. Begin now, with the pain still present, with the memories still alive, with the heart still healing, with the future still unclear, because the life you owe yourself does not require you to be fully healed before you start living. It only requires you to stop using your wounds as a reason to remain in places that keep creating more of them. Walk forward quietly. Leave what keeps breaking you. Choose what keeps building you. Protect what keeps healing you. And never again spend your whole life trying to be chosen by people who made you forget that you were always allowed to choose yourself. As this audiobook comes to an end, remember this truth with your whole heart. You were never created to spend your life begging for a place in the hearts of people who only choose you when it is easy, convenient, comfortable, or useful for them. You have given enough of yourself to people who did not know how to value what they were receiving. You have waited long enough for people who had time for everything except your heart. You have explained enough to those who understood you perfectly but still chose not to change. You have forgiven enough without seeing different behavior. You have carried enough silent pain while pretending that being strong meant never admitting how tired you were. Now it is time to come back to yourself, not with anger, not with bitterness, not with revenge, but with a quiet decision that your life can no longer be built around people who never truly chose you. Let them misunderstand your silence. Let them question your distance. Let them call your growth selfish, if that is the only way they can avoid seeing how much they benefited from your weakness. You do not need to convince everyone that your healing is valid. You do not need to explain every boundary. You do not need to prove that your heart was hurt before you are allowed to protect it. The life you owe yourself begins when you stop making your peace depend on someone else's apology, someone else's return, someone else's regret, or someone else's ability to finally see your worth. You are allowed to move forward without their permission. You are allowed to heal without their understanding. You are allowed to become strong without becoming cold. You are allowed to love people from a distance when closeness keeps destroying your peace. You are allowed to choose yourself, even if choosing yourself disappoints people who expected you to remain available forever. Do not hate the version of yourself that stayed too long. That version was not weak. That version was hopeful. That version wanted to believe in love. That version gave chances because your heart was still soft. That version kept waiting because deep inside, you wanted someone to finally choose you with the same loyalty you kept offering them. But now, a new version of you must rise. A version that still loves, but no longer begs. A version that still forgives, but no longer forgets the pattern. A version that still cares but no longer abandons itself. A version that still has a soft heart, but now protects that heart with wisdom, boundaries, and self-respect. From this moment forward, stop living like your worth depends on who stayed, who left, who ignored you, who replaced you, who misunderstood you, or who failed to choose you. Their inability to value you is not the measurement of your value. Their silence is not your identity. Their absence is not your failure. Their rejection is not your destiny. You are still here. You are still breathing. You are still becoming. You are still capable of building a life that feels peaceful, honest, meaningful, and deeply yours. So take your energy back. Take your time back. Take your dreams back. Take your mornings back. Take your peace back. Take your heart back from every place where it kept waiting to be chosen by people who did not know how to hold it with care. And when life becomes quiet, do not be afraid of that quiet. That quiet is not emptiness. That quiet is your soul finally resting from the noise of people who kept making love feel like confusion. In that quiet, rebuild yourself. In that quiet, remember your dreams. In that quiet, become your own safe place. In that quiet, learn to choose yourself every single day until choosing yourself no longer feels like survival, but becomes your natural way of living. The life you owe yourself is not far away. It is waiting inside the next honest decision you make. It is waiting inside the boundary you finally keep. It is waiting inside the message you do not send, the old door you do not reopen, the pain you do not run back to, and the peace you finally protect. One day you will look back and understand why everything had to change. You will see that losing certain people was not the end of your life. It was the beginning of your return. you will see that being unchosen by the wrong people pushed you toward becoming chosen by yourself, and that is where real freedom begins. So walk forward quietly, heal privately, grow deeply, choose wisely, and never again abandon your own life just to keep a place in someone else's. This was the life you owe yourself. If this audiobook touched something deep inside you, subscribe to the Book Frog and write in the comments, "I choose myself now."